In this capsule of 5 by 5, I want to talk to you about design thinking. We have all been hearing the term design thinking, but oftentimes when I talk to different people and ask them their understanding of design thinking, I think they have got different things in mind when they are talking about design thinking, and therefore to bring about a kind of a platform of clarity, I thought I will talk about design thinking today. Einstein rightly said that if you continue to do the same thing over and over again and each time keep expecting a different result, that is what insanity is about. Design thinking, therefore, is about going back to the drawing board to handle the wicked problems. Now, wicked problems are consistent problems which do not show any kind of a remorse or any kind of a desire to change despite all kinds of attempts to solve the problems have been made. They are persistent problems, they are chronic problems, by nature they are stubborn, they exist despite all known efforts being made to solve them out. So we try to classify them as wicked problems. So whenever you face wicked problems and you try to give the same solutions over and over again, the wicked problems are so wicked that they persist and you can't do anything about. But that does not mean that you have to live with these problems. It means you need to go back to the design board, and that is what design thinking is all about. Going back to the design board and trying to look at the entire situation totally differently and work out a new solution. What are the 5 steps for that? Number 1, you need to go to the customer and understand the customer best. The customer or the client who's the recipient of the product or the service where the problem exists, you need to go back to the customer before you go to the drawing board. You need to understand the customer. You need to understand the psychology of the customer. Is the problem existing because the psychology of the customer is expecting something else and you are not tuned to that psychology? Is there a gap in the understanding? You need to understand the emotions of the customer. You need to understand his social pattern of behavior and social expectations in the society when he's using that product or services. You need to understand his physical requirements. You also need to understand his economic viability, because he may, for all you know, not be very keen to pay for the kind of services, but because he may not have alternative, he's buying that product or service from you, and therefore there is a psychological or an economic resistance in his mind which is causing the problem to be portrayed much more. So there are various reasons why understanding the client and understanding him more as or understanding the full system's impact on the client is one of the most important things as step number 1 of design thinking. Once you understood the client, you will certainly get to understand what may be really happening. You need to reframe the problem. For all you know, the problem may be caused because you may have not defined the problem in the first place in the right way. Therefore, reframe the problem and introduce the new patterns that are existing in the current environment so that you can bring in the impact and influence of these new patterns on trying to solve some of the old problems. The third is, once you have done that and once you have reframed the problem, you need to start incubating, ideating with the relevant people who are involved in the problem, and then start evaluating what they are saying. So identify all the people: clients, client servicing people, marketing people, service people, research people, manufacturing people, everybody who form the configuration of how the product or service is being rendered to the customer. Get all of them together, incubate and ideate, and then evaluate the plan, so that you collectively have everyone who's a stakeholder of the thought sitting together to rethink the situation. Once that is done and you arrive at a reasonable conclusion, what you really need to do is to build a prototype. And the purpose of the prototype is that not only the theoretical solution, but when the prototype is being tested out, then the chronic system will come back with its feedback, the first cut feedback on how it is reacting to that prototype in a test case to the solution. And once you do that, you launch it. From the prototype, you scale it to the customer size that you are looking at it until you reach the ultimate destination that you have desired to reach. Keep tracking it out so that you ensure that finally, the chronic problem is solved. And that's what design thinking does for you.